All right, 3, 2, 1, begin to quiet your mouths, and neat. So welcome to Mod 1 Overview. So the purpose of this is to give you an idea where we're going in the next 2 weeks. The point of this is not to teach you how to do these things. The point of this is not to teach you how to do these things. This is not a lesson. I mentioned this because last time I did this, someone was like, it moved really quickly and I had a hard time coding along. Do not code along with this. That is a poor use of your time and not the point of this. I want to give you an idea of the context because when we first started doing this standards-based thing, it sort of feels like you're just checking boxes to check boxes without having a concept of like how all these things fit together. So hopefully by the end of this, we have an idea of how these pieces fit together, and then we spend the next 2 weeks learning how to do them. Questions about that? Cool. If you can do all these things by the end of this lesson, you're probably at the wrong school. All right, so in order, demonstrating basic programming proficiency in Ruby, iterating over collections using built-in methods, building classes and objects using Ruby, modeling domains using ERDs, querying databases using SQL, building Ruby applications that persist data, modeling relationships using Ruby, and modeling relationships using Active Record. So that's the stuff that we should be able to do in 2 weeks. How this is all going to fit together is we're going to make we call a CLI app, or a command line app. That's the projects you're going to be doing in week 3 are all command line apps. And we'll work with some nouns, and then we'll make them verb, and we'll make them communicate with each other. That's the big goal. So let's see what this looks like. Somebody give me some nouns. Dog, love it. So we'll have for our purposes, well, let's see. Now we're going to do dogs and owners. And each dog can have more than one owner, and each owner can have more than one dog. And so we call that a many-to-many relationship. And the thing that I just did here is called modeling relationships. I think I had maybe missed one here with ERDs. Yeah, query data, nope. Model domains using ERDs. This diagram I did here, that's an ERD. So we're going to learn how to take a bunch of nouns and describe their relationships. Because you could also say something like each dog only has one owner. That'd be a perfectly valid thing to say also. All right, we're going to say each dog can have many owners, each owner can have many dogs. That's data modeling. Let's take a look at how we'd represent that in code. Cool, we'll call this Ruby Dogs. You should not be trying to follow along with me, by the way. I'm going to make a dog class. I'm going to make a owner class, and I'm going to make an environment. So I have these 3 empty files that I'm working with, and I'm going to start by opening up the environment. And I'm going to say that I have a class. Oh, nope. I'm going to require pry. and then I'm going to binding.pry anytime I run this. So point being, if I ruby environment.rb, come on now, any second. There we go. I'm prying. The reason I put that in a separate file is I want to be able to write Ruby code in those classes and then be able to use them, like kind of coordinate them, mash them all together in that environment file, which coincidentally is how most of your labs are written. So if I go to that dog file that I made and make a class called dog, I go to the owner and make a class called owner. And then over in my environment, if I require those in, require dog and require owner, now I can do something kind of interesting. I can say, all right, I want to Ruby the environment. Oh, why this is running so slow. And I'll be able to make new dogs and make new owners. So that looks like this. There we go. If I have a dog named Bixby, say dog.new, and I can say owner is Kyle. Cool. And now anytime I look at Bixby, I get the dog object that I made. If I do Kyle, I get the owner object that I made. Sick! So, but let's not stop there. We should probably give these things some properties. So what this looks like is whenever I make a new owner, owner has a name. And in case like you've seen this, some different syntax stuff, that's the same thing. You can wrap that in parentheses or not. Ruby people tend not to. And I can say, all right, whenever you make a new one, I want you to save the name that gets passed in to a variable called name. And now I should be able to make new owners and like give them names. You should probably be able to do the same thing with dogs. So I'm going to say, all right, Fido, let the world know who you are. So all right, now I can make a new dog and give it a name. And all right, cool. So those have like some properties about them. There's probably some behaviors you want to do also, these verbs. So maybe a dog can bark. And when it barks, it puts arf. My name is, and then its name, for example. So now when I run the environment, so basically we can give these things state and we can give them behavior. States, things like their name, their behavior, stuff like bark. So I'm going to do the same thing where I make a new owner and I give it my name. Hey, there it is. And I can do things like Bixby is dog.new, give it the name Bixby, and now I can do Bixby.bark. And arf, my name is Bixby. Cool. We're programming. We're really programming. Neat. So that was our, if you look back at our things that we're trying to be able to do. Oops. I keep falling asleep. Pissing me off. Like, that's really kind of what building classes and objects is all about. We also probably want to be able to like read those names, because right now I can't do Kyle.name. Oops. It wouldn't work if I were in the environment file. So And while I'm in here, a quick tour of my confusing screen. These are different terminals. So you might be using iTerm or something like that, and you have little tabs across the top. I have them across the bottom. But otherwise, the same kind of idea. And then my editor also works more like your editor than you might think. So if I pull in these two files, these are the names of the files up here. The active one is in yellow. And then none of the rest of that matters. Cool, that's really it. So if I want to be able to read out the name, I might do something like adder reader and then give it a symbol for name. And then maybe I want to be able to read and write a dog's name. And so I'll do adder accessor name. And in practice, that's going to look like I don't know if this is something I should be concerned about. Watch, I just have like 4,000 Ruby instances running on the computer right now. So I can do something like make Kyle, and then I can now read Kyle's name. And if I make a new Bixby, I can say, all right, Bixby's name is that. I can also say Bixby's name equals Mesa. And if I do Bixby.bark, name is Mesa. This is more like basic classes and objects kind of stuff. So that stuff you'll probably get relatively easy. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody in this room is like pretty confident with the things I just demonstrated in the next couple days. Where this gets harder is the relationships. If I want to do something like Kyle.dogs and see all of the dogs that I own, that's the trickiest thing really that we do in Mod 1. So let's start with a real simple, like each dog has one owner kind of thing. So for owner, I maybe make a behavior called add dog that takes in a dog. And now I need to have a list of dogs of some sort that like I may be reporting on. When I say list of dogs, any guesses what sort of data I should use for that?
An empty array.
An empty array, yeah! So I'm going to make a new list of dogs for each owner that starts as an empty array. And then when I add a dog, any guesses what I do with that? Shovel it in? That's grim. Cool. So I shovel that in. And now, maybe I add another reader for dogs, and I should be able to like see a list of my dogs. Cool. So if I reload this environment, I should be able to make Kyle, make Bixby, and add Bixby to Kyle. So I'll make Kyle, and you can see that I've got this empty dogs array also. I'm going to make Bixby, and I'm going to do Kyle.addDog Bixby. Cool. And now if I do Kyle.dogs, sweet, I can probably add Bixby again. And again. My God, I'm cloning him. And if I look at my dogs list now, I have 4 dogs. I can even do things like Kyle.dogs.count and get, ooh, weird, right? Because dogs is the array, I can just start chaining these things. Doesn't even stop there, man. It gets even wilder. I can do something like Kyle.dogs.each. And for each dog, I can dog.bark, and it arfs 4 times. This is like the big mind fucker. Is working with objects through other objects. And the worst it's going to get in the next 2 weeks is probably when we start trying to figure out how we do each dog can have multiple owners, each owner can have multiple dogs. So that's the only way we can do that So we have this diagram here. Anytime we're doing something of that shape, we actually need something in between them. So we're going to say there's a dog owners thing in between. And we're actually going to say that each dog has many dog owners, and each owner has many dog owners. It's actually the same diagram that I just did, but represented in a way that we can model a little bit better in Ruby. So what we'll do is we'll make that new dog owner class. And we'll call that. And the main job of this is to keep track of every combination of dogs and owners. So when I make a new one, I'm expecting a dog and an owner to get passed in. I'm going to save the dog, and I'll save the owner. And then I need to make both of those readable. So I'll say, cool, dog and owner on this are both readable. So now when I go to add dogs, I'm not keeping track of this on Kyle anymore. What I'm doing is I'm making a new instance of dog owner that takes in the dog that I was just given and myself. And now, if I want to list dogs, that's actually a little bit more complicated now. Now I need to do something like look through every single one of the dog owners and pull out only the ones that are mine. So I'll do something like, all right, I need to keep track of every single one of these. So I'm going to make what's called a class variable. So this isn't owned by Bixby. This is owned by dog owner, the class itself. I'm going to say every time I make a new dog owner, I'm going to shovel in the dog owner that I'm making. And I'm going to make a method, a class method called all that just returns that all list. Now your head's starting to hurt yet? So now if I want a list of my dogs, I go dog owner dot all, and then I need to get only the ones that are mine. And so I select let's see, dog. I say, cool, give me dog owner dot owner all the ones that are just mine. And then if we call that dog owners, cool, that's going to be each of those combinations. I kind of just want the dogs though. And so that's every instance where I'm the thing. But what I really want to do is map and return back just the dog part of that. Dog owner dot dog. And if I do that, I should be able to run this. I should be able to make Kyle again. I should be able to make Bixby again. And now when I do Kyle dot, well, actually, let's make another owner. Show how this many-to-many thing works. Do Elise is owner dot new. Elise. I super did. Cool. If I make Elise, and I'm going to add, actually, I'll add another dog too. So we'll say Mesa equals dog.new Mesa. And if I do Kyle.addDog Bixby. Oh shoot, I didn't bring it in. Man, that was a long walk for a short dive. Also need to pull that class in. Dog owner. I say, cool, I make Kyle, I make Elise, I make Mesa, and I make Bixby. I go, cool, Kyle add dog Bixby. Neat. And I do Kyle add dog Mesa. And I want to get all of my dogs, Kyle.dogs. There's Bixby and Mesa. But I got it through that other class. That is the hardest thing that we'll probably do in the next 2 weeks, is like get very comfortable with that kind of idea. If I want to do this from the other direction, and this is where the real power of having that, what we call single source of truth is if I want to list all of a dog's owners, I do the same kind of thing, but in reverse. So this is how I got all the dogs for an owner. If I say, cool, instead of getting the owners that match, I want the dog that matches. And I want the owner that I'm mapping over. So kill that. Now if I can do Kyle, Elise, Mesa, and Bixby, and I add Bixby to me, I add Mesa to me, and also Elise owns Mesa. So I'll do Elise.addDog Mesa. And now I can say, cool, Kyle, who are your dogs? I go, Bixby and Mesa. And I go, Mesa, who are your owners? Kyle and Elise. Bixby, who are your owners? Just Kyle. That's the kind of shit that we're doing. So you can extrapolate from this what an app would look like that did all these kinds of things. A book lending library or something like that you manage just like this on the command line. That's kind of what we're learning how to do the next couple weeks. If I go back to the list of standards, all that like selecting and mapping and what have you, that's the iteration. All these things are basic Ruby proficiency. We've built some classes and objects. We've modeled relationships. The only thing we haven't done is some of this data persistence things. And I don't want to go too deep into that now, but you know how I keep losing all of my owners and dogs and stuff when I quit the app? The persistence is just a way to store that somewhere else read it in, write to it. And it would be something like, let's see, I do SQLite 3 dogs, create table dogs with name that's text and cool, and I insert into dogs name values Bixby, and do one for Mesa. And now if I say select all dogs, all from dogs, I get Bixby and Mesa. That's what the persistence part of this looks like. The thing that I was just typing in was SQL. So I wrote some SQL queries. We have two different ways that we integrate those into applications. One of them is very raw, like you're just writing SQL in Ruby and pulling it out of a database. And the other one is a lot slicker, and will be what we'll do for the rest of the program. It's called Active Record. Neat. That is the collection of skills that we're trying to develop in the next 2 weeks. What questions do you have? Yeah.
I noticed when you were typing in the classes, you used like self or like an at symbol for
Yeah.
the variable.
Yeah.
I guess, what exactly is the purpose of that?
So glad you asked. We'll get more into this, but to kind of wet your whistle, in Ruby we have a couple different kinds of variables. If I just do, actually, do it this way. If I do name, we call that a local variable. This is what you've been doing in Hashketball, all this kind of stuff. Yeah?
Isn't, if I remember correct, like the class variables, the ones that never change, and if you do, you get like a method error or something like that because they start with a capital letter or whatever?
Class constants are what those are.
Yeah.
If I do @name, this is called an instance variable. So an instance of dog has a name. We do that with an @ symbol. And then we do two @ symbols. That's called a class variable. So it's a different color. So local instance class, and the thing Adam was talking about is a fourth one called a constant, which we're not going to talk about right now, but that's something that doesn't change. So for instance, dog owner, those are constants. And this would be like, you just type Kyle, you just type name and you get back Kyle. This would be like Kyle.name, and this would be like owner.name. Local instance class. The other part of your question, self. Self is a kind of tricky thing. It can basically mean two things. It can be the instance, or it can be the class. And it depends on where it was used. So when I did this was referring to dog owner. Dog owner has a method named all, so I can do dog owner.all. I can't do Bixby.all or a particular instance of dog owner.all. I'm saying that the entire class owns this. And the entire class has this variable, all, because it's a class variable. Versus here, where a particular dog owner has a variable named dog, has a variable named owner. And in this case, self is referring to a particular dog owner. All dog owners, a dog owner.
So it's kind of like a scope thing almost?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Cool. We'll spend a lot more time talking about that, but that's your brief overview. What else? Other questions?
If you were to put like a binding.pry, could you figure out what self is referring to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's try it. So if I am making a new owner, I throw a binding.pry in there. Let's see, get a SQLite. And I make a new owner. Cool. And I go, hey, what's self? It's the instance I'm in the process of building right now. Versus if I did that same thing inside of dog owner in its all method, and there we go, now it's working fast. I do something like dog owner.new, oh shit, I need to make the people first. I'll do new Kyle, and I need a dog. So new Bixby, I do dog owner dot new. Well, actually, I can just add it, I guess. Kyle dot add dog Bixby. All right, so now I own Bixby, and if I'm trying to get all of the dog owners, I'm gonna hit that pry, and I can say, cool, what's self? Dog owner is self. Great question. What else?
So you're using pride in the environment?
Yes.
How?
That's a great question. So the reason I'm doing it here is if I don't, I have to load all these things up by hand. Even better, check this shit out. That stuff I've been like typing out by hand, I can also put that in here. So if I do Kyle is owner.new, Kyle, and Bixby is dog.new,
So is
Bixby.
that now just globally over all your other tabs you have? Any other, so your owner.rb and dog owner.rb?
Now those are going to be available once this runs. So I'll put police in here and Mesa in here. And I can even do things like I can call methods. Kyle.add dog Bixby. And now when I run this, back to being slow. All those things are going to be available. Kyle's available. Kyle's dogs are available. And it's because this environment file coordinated all of those things together, and I can do any setup that I want to do for my app. So when you're building your command line apps, you're going to read stuff out of the database, you're going to make new instances of these things, and then you're like set up so that you can run. Mez, does that answer your question?
Mostly, I don't know that I understand binding pride enough to like dig deeper.
Cool. Mez, starting at the top, tell me what you think is happening in this file. And if you get stuck, we can figure it out together.
So require all the things that you use for.
Correct.
Right? So you're using pry, which is a method
Yep.
to do stuff. You're using the other files, which are the class files.
And pause there. That's what allows them to see each other. That's why I can call dogowner.all inside of owner, for example. But requiring all of them kind of puts them in one big bucket that can all see each other. Okay, keep going.
And then you're putting all the elements in there, so you don't have to type them in every time. And a method that adds one of the, like Bixby to you could do the same as Elise and Mesa. And then the binding.pry is what calls all of that to show up, right?
Not quite. Who can give an explanation of what binding? Actually, let's step back a sec. I take out binding.pry. What happens? What's your prediction?
It just runs the whole program.
It runs the program.
Yeah. But it doesn't show.
It doesn't allow you to interact with it at all. So once this runs, it did all those things we told it to do, but I can't type. I can't do anything with it.
God, okay.
Once I binding.pry, I've paused the execution of this file, and I have all these variables available. All these things have happened, but I can also start writing Ruby commands.
God, okay.
Great question.
Yeah, that is exactly what I wanted to know.
Cool. Other questions?
So basically binding.pry is just a way to help you manipulate your code before you actually execute it.
Exactly. And what is also cool about this is that we can do multiple ones. So like if I run this, it's gonna stop before I have any dogs. So Kyle exists, and I can see my dogs. I don't have any. And then when I get out of this binding pry, it runs again. And now if I look at my dogs, I have Bixby. So a way to like step through the code.
How did you get out of it?
Control D.
That same
That
code.
exits pry.
That exits pry.
So I know in Learn it was like exit dot exclamation or
To 2 exclamation points or exit or whatever. Cool. You're old enough at this point to learn the grown-up version, which is Control D.
Control. It's control, not command.
Control, not command. Basically, anything that you do in that command line is going to be control, not command. Which is, they actually split it up that way on purpose. I think it was a stupid idea, but nonetheless. Command is all of your like Mac OS stuff. Control is all your terminal stuff. Other questions? Cool. So you guys are doing Haskell review in 45 minutes. It's kind of a shorter lunch. Pitter patter. And